Let me guess. You work harder than most people you know. You show up early, you stay late, you do everything right. And yet, somehow, the people who seem to work less than you have more than you. That is not bad luck. That is not unfair. That is a system, working exactly as designed. And you were never supposed to figure that out. I didn't understand this for years. I kept thinking the problem was me. Not enough effort, not enough discipline, not the right degree, not the right connections. Then I stopped blaming myself and started studying the structure around me. That's when Machiavelli stopped being history and started being the most relevant thing I had ever read. Because 500 years ago, this man sat inside the most powerful government in Renaissance Europe and watched something that still happens today. Every single day, he watched brilliant people, loyal people, hardworking people give everything they had to systems that were never designed to give it back. And he wrote down exactly why. Not as philosophy, as a warning. For the next 22 minutes, I want to show you what he saw. Because the middle class does not work harder and get poorer because of laziness. It happens because of something far more uncomfortable. Something the system needs you never to understand. Let's begin. Part 1. You are running perfectly on the wrong track. Most people think they are failing because they are not working hard enough. Here is the first twist. They are not failing. They are succeeding at something they never agreed to do. Think about everything you were taught about building a good life. Study hard. Get the stable job. Save what you can. Work your way up. Be loyal. Be patient. Trust the process. That advice sounds like wisdom. But ask yourself one question nobody ever asked you. Who benefits most from you following that advice? Because here is what nobody said when they handed you that plan. It was not designed to produce your freedom. It was designed to produce your availability. There is a difference. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli sat in a small farmhouse outside Florence. He had just lost everything overnight. 14 years of loyal service, gone, not because he had failed, because the system he served had simply moved on to its next need. And his loyalty had never been written into any contract. Sitting in that farmhouse, he finally understood something that changed everything he would ever write. The map he had followed was never drawn for the person walking it. It was drawn for the person who needed someone to walk it. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that the most dangerous trap is not an enemy at the gates. It is the belief that the gates were built for your protection. Pause here. Think about the map you were given. School, job, salary, save. Repeat, who drew that map? And where does following it perfectly actually take you? Because the middle class is not failing. It is succeeding at building someone else's future instead of its own. One-liner punch. The most loyal employees in history never built the empires. They built them for someone else. Part 2. The system is not broken. It is working perfectly. Most people believe the system failed them. Here is the twist that will genuinely disturb you. The system did not fail you. It succeeded. It produced exactly what it was designed to produce. A workforce that is productive, dependent, and just comfortable enough to never question the structure they are inside. Machiavelli documented this in The Prince. He wrote that the ruler who keeps his subjects in a permanent state of moderate need never has to fear them, because a person focused entirely on survival has no energy left for strategy. Now look at what surrounds you. The mortgage engineered to take 30 years. The car loan that requires the job that funds the car loan. The credit card minimum payment that exists specifically so the debt never dies. The subscription economy, designed so that cancelling feels like more effort than continuing. None of this is random. This is architecture, carefully designed, repeatedly tested, optimized to ensure that the money you earn isn't intercepted before it can accumulate into anything that gives you real power. Now here is the historical moment that makes this undeniable. In 15th century Florence, two men were building financial empires in the same city. Pallas Strozzi, the wealthiest man in Florence at the time, grand palace, public banquets, famous art collection. Everyone knew exactly what he had. And Cosimo de' Medici, who wore the plain wool robe of a common laborer, while quietly controlling the finances of kings. When political power shifted, Strozzi's enemies did not need to investigate. He had spent years showing them exactly where everything was. They dismantled him, piece by piece. Cosimo? His empire expanded for 3 more generations. Because no one could attack what no one could see. The system benefits from your visibility. It depends on your predictability. It is sustained by your moderate comfort. Pause here. Think about how visible your financial life is. How many people know exactly what you earn? How many institutions know exactly what you need? How many of your expenses are not choices, but requirements you agreed to without ever reading the contract? One-liner punch. The most expensive cage is the one that comes with a mortgage and feels like a home. Part 3. Why effort is the trap, not the solution. Here is the moment in this video where most people feel genuinely uncomfortable, because this challenges something you were told from the moment you were old enough to understand language. Hard work is not the answer. Not because hard work is wrong, because hard work without the right structure is just energy donated to someone else's dream. Let me show you 2 people. Person A works hard every day. Long hours, full commitment, maximum effort. 20 years later, they are respected, tired, and completely dependent on the paycheck continuing. If it stops for 90 days, everything they built collapses. Person B also works hard, but while working, they ask one different question. Not how do I work more, but what can I build that works when I don't? 20 years later, person B also works, but some of their income arrives while they are sleeping. Now here is the historical twist. The Republic of Venice dominated global trade for 500 years. Not because their sailors worked harder than everyone else. Every empire had hard-working sailors. Venice built the arsenal, a shipyard so precisely engineered it could produce a fully armed warship from raw materials in a single working day. But here is what nobody focuses on. The Venetian leadership did not build those ships. They built the system that built the ships. And then they focused entirely on expansion and strategy, while the machine ran itself. While competing empires were pushing their sailors harder, Venice had made pushing sailors harder completely irrelevant. The middle class was taught to be the sailor, trade expertise for a salary. Be replaced the moment you cost too much. Venice built the arsenal. The arsenal does not get replaced, it gets expanded. Everything you worked on last week, every hour you gave. What did that compound into specifically for your own future? Or did it simply produce a paycheck that arrived and disappeared and reset on the 1st of the month? One-liner punch. The middle class sells time. The wealthy buy time back. The difference is never the effort, it is always the structure. Part 4. The negotiation you are losing before it begins. Here is a twist that is going to change every professional conversation you ever have again. Every interaction where money changes hands is a negotiation. Your salary, rent, your contracts, your rates. And in almost every single one of those negotiations, the other side walks in knowing something you do not know they know. They know what you currently earn. They know what your lifestyle costs. They know how long you have been without a better option. And they set every number based not on what you are worth, but on the minimum you will accept without walking away. You were not underpaid because you are not valuable. You were underpaid because they knew exactly how much discomfort you could absorb. Machiavelli documented this in the most dramatic example he ever witnessed personally. 1502, Central Italy. 4 of Cesare Borgia's most trusted commanders secretly formed an alliance to destroy him. Combined, they outnumbered his forces significantly. A direct confrontation would have ended his empire. Most rulers would have done what pride demanded. Confront them, declare war, show strength. Borgia chose the opposite. He sent each commander a personal letter, warm, forgiving, almost humble, projecting the image of a man who suspected nothing. He invited them to a private gathering in Senigallia. They arrived without weapons, smiling, completely certain they were meeting the weaker party. The moment the doors closed behind them, Borgia's hidden forces materialized from every entrance simultaneously. He ended a war that could have destroyed him, without fighting a single open battle, because he controlled what they knew about him, while knowing everything about them. Now think about your last salary conversation. Did you walk in knowing their real ceiling? Did you know what they would actually pay, if pressed by someone with real alternatives? Did you know what your genuine options were, if they said no? Or did you walk in hoping they would be fair and accept whatever they offered, because you needed it more than you could afford to show? That is not a failure of character. That is a failure of preparation, and it costs most people more money over a lifetime than almost any investment decision they will ever make. Think about one negotiation coming up in your life. What do they know about your position? What do you know about theirs? One-liner punch. The person who needs the deal more almost always gets the worse one. Stop needing it more. Start knowing more. Part 5. The invisible tax that consumes everything you earn. Nobody warns you about this one. There is no bill for it, no statement, no line item. But it is one of the most consistent destroyers of middle-class wealth in the modern world. It is the cost of performance. The car that signals you have arrived. The apartment in the neighborhood that reflects your income. The clothes, the restaurants, the holidays, all calibrated to communicate one thing to the people around you: I am doing well. And here is the psychological twist that makes this so destructive. The people you are performing for are performing for you. Nobody is watching. Everybody is spending to be watched. And the collective result is an entire class of people draining their potential wealth to impress people who are doing the exact same thing. Cosimo de' Medici understood what most people never figure out. Every dollar spent on visibility is a dollar that cannot compound invisibly. He dressed like a laborer. He lived below his means. He let his rivals perform wealth publicly while he accumulated it privately. By the time anyone understood what Medici had built, it was too late to compete with it. The modern middle class inverts this entirely. Every raise is consumed by a visible upgrade. Every milestone is celebrated with spending that signals arrival. Every accumulation is converted, almost immediately, into an identity statement. And the gap between where people are and where they could be grows quietly, one performance at a time. One honest question: if nobody around you could see how you lived, would you spend the same way? If the answer is no, you are paying the performance tax, and it is more expensive than you have ever calculated. One-liner punch. The wealthy build their net worth. The middle class builds their image. Only one of those compounds. Part 6. The motion illusion here is the cruelest part of the middle class trap, and it is the one that is hardest to see from inside it. Most people who are stuck do not feel stuck. They feel busy, Monday through Friday. Work, commute, email, meetings, evenings too depleted to build anything. Weekends recovering from the exhaustion, Sunday dreading the reset. And yet there is always the feeling that things are happening. Progress is being made. Effort is being given. But here is the twist that makes this so brutal. At the end of the year, the position is almost identical to where it began. Machiavelli called this the most dangerous state for any ruler. Not defeat, the illusion of movement, while standing completely still. He wrote that the ruler who mistakes activity for strategy exhausts everything he has, achieving nothing that lasts. He fights battles that did not need to be fought, maintains positions that were already lost, stays busy on tasks that never compound. The middle class does this financially every single month, working hard inside a machine that produces value for the organization while producing almost nothing for the person operating it. Here is the question that breaks this pattern. Not how hard am I working, but what does my work compound into specifically for my own future? Because if the honest answer is, it produces a salary that pays for the life required to earn the salary, then the motion is real, but the progress is an illusion. Pause here. Think about where you were financially exactly 1 year ago today. Now think about where you are right now. How much did working hard close that gap? One-liner punch. A hamster on a wheel is one of the hardest working animals on earth. It has never gone anywhere. Part 7. The safety that is actually a trap here is the final twist, and it is the one that ties every other reason together. The middle class was not taught to pursue wealth. It was taught to avoid loss. And those two goals produce completely opposite financial lives. Avoiding loss means keeping the stable job, even when the stable job has a ceiling you hit years ago. Avoiding loss means not touching the savings, even as they quietly lose purchasing power every year. Avoiding loss means staying in every arrangement that stopped serving you long after the expiration date, because leaving feels like risk. And that fear, that single, quiet, permanent fear of losing what you have, is the most effective tool the system has ever created. Because it does not require a law, it does not require enforcement, it simply requires that you feel like you have something to lose that you cannot afford to risk. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, not the reckless, not the emotional, the bold, the ones who understand that the safest position is not the one most tightly held, it is the one with the most alternatives. He observed that every ruler who survived, every betrayal, every shift in power, had built so many parallel positions that losing any single one did not destroy them. One income, one employer, one arrangement that a single conversation can end. That is not safety. That is controlled dependency. Wearing the disguise of stability, real safety is options. Multiple streams, multiple positions. The ability to walk away from any single arrangement without catastrophe following you out the door. That kind of safety is not found. It is built quietly without announcing it. While everyone else protects the single position they already have. Primary income stopped tomorrow. How many months before everything begins to collapse? That number is the real size of your safety net. One-liner punch. Stability is not protection from risk. It is risk that has been made comfortable enough to accept. Before this video ends, I want you to do one thing. Not next year. Not when circumstances improve. Tonight, find the part that hit the hardest. The wrong map, the design system, no leverage, the performance tax, negotiating blind, motion without progress, safety that is actually dependency. Find the one, just one, because the middle class stays trapped by trying to change everything at once and changing nothing. The wealthy change one thing, then another, quietly, without announcing any of it, until one morning the architecture is completely different, and the people around them are still trying to figure out what happened. Machiavelli understood the real reason 5 centuries before the middle class existed. He wrote that the people who remain captured are not captured because they lack intelligence. They are captured because they are living inside a structure designed by someone else, for someone else's benefit, and they were never told. The middle class works harder and gets poorer, not because effort is wrong, but because effort without the right architecture is just energy flowing perfectly into a machine that was never built to return it. The Medici understood architecture, Borgia understood information, Venice understood leverage, Machiavelli understood all of it. And now, so do you. The question is not whether this is true. You can feel it. You have always been able to feel it. The question is what you change before next month arrives. Looking exactly like this one, history does not remember the people who worked the hardest inside someone else's system. It remembers the people who understood what the system was built for and quietly built something else instead. 5 years from today, people will either remember your effort or they will not remember it at all, because they will be too busy noticing what you built. Fortune belongs to the bold, and the bold do not work harder inside the machine. They build their own.